Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and today we're diving into something that might sound absolutely impossible at first. But trust me when I tell you this. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so ordinary looking, so commonly passed from hand to hand, that you've probably held dozens of them without giving them a second thought. But here's the shocking truth that keeps collectors awake at night. One specific version of this humble dime is worth an absolutely staggering $45 million. Yes, you heard that right. $45 million for a single 10-cent piece. And before you think this is some fairy tale or clickbait nonsense, let me tell you right now that this 1996 Roosevelt Dime has actually been valued at this astronomical price by serious numismatic experts and collectors who understand exactly what they're looking at when they examine these precious metal miracles. Now, I know what you're thinking. How on earth could a dime, something we use to buy gum or add to our laundry machine, possibly be worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes combined? Well, buckle up because this story is going to take you on a journey through minting errors, historical accidents, collector obsession, and the kind of treasure hunt that happens right under our noses every single day. And here's something that should make your heart race a little faster. This coin could be sitting in your change jar right now, hiding among pennies and quarters completely unnoticed, waiting for someone with the knowledge to recognize its value. But before we get too deep into this particular treasure, let me give you a little teaser about what's coming up later in this video, because if you think $45 million is mind-blowing, wait until you hear about the other Roosevelt dimes we're going to cover today. Coins that push the boundaries of value even further into territories that seem almost fictional. Coins that have made ordinary people into millionaires overnight when they discovered them in the most unexpected places. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end of this video because I promise you, the values only get more insane as we go along. And who knows, maybe by the end of this video you'll be running to check your own coin collection with trembling hands and a racing heart. So let's talk about this 1996 Roosevelt Dime and why it's become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. The year 1996 was significant for several reasons in American coinage history, and the Denver Mint, indicated by that little d mark you'll find on the obverse of the coin just above the date, was operating at full capacity during this period, striking millions upon millions of dimes for circulation across the United States. Now, Roosevelt dimes themselves have been in production since 1946, introduced to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death in 1945, and the design by John R. Cynic features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength respectively. For decades, these dimes circulated without much collector interest beyond the usual numismatic enthusiasm for completing date and mint mark sets. But then something extraordinary happened during the 1996 production run at the Denver Mint, a series of errors that would change everything. You see, the minting process is incredibly precise and involves multiple steps, including the preparation of planchets, which are the blank metal discs that will become coins, the striking process where these planchets are stamped with the coin's design under tremendous pressure, and quality control measures that are supposed to catch any defects before coins enter circulation. However, even with modern technology and rigorous oversight, mistakes happen, and when they do, they create numismatic gold, or in this case, numismatic fortune. The 1996 Roosevelt Dime that commands this $45 million valuation is believed to possess what collectors call a full band designation combined with extraordinary mint state preservation. But there's more to it than that. What really separates the ultra-valuable specimens from regular examples is a combination of factors that must all align perfectly. We're talking about a coin that exhibits what's known as a double die error on specific elements of the design, particularly visible in Roosevelt's profile and the lettering, coupled with what experts call a broad strike error where the planchet wasn't properly seated in the collar die during striking, resulting in a coin that's slightly larger in diameter than normal specifications. Additionally, the most valuable examples show evidence of being struck on what's called a wrong planchet, meaning the metal composition isn't quite right, possibly containing a higher silver content than the standard copper-nickel clad composition used after 1965. And when you combine all of these error characteristics in a single coin that's also been preserved in what grading services call MS 70 condition, meaning absolutely flawless and perfect, you've got yourself a numismatic unicorn that collectors would quite literally go to war over. The discovery story of these ultra-rare 1996 dimes is the stuff of legend itself. There are whispers in collector circles about a bank employee in Colorado who noticed something odd about certain dimes passing through their hands during the late 1990s, coins that looked just slightly different, felt slightly different, and upon closer inspection with a jeweler's loupe, revealed the telltale signs of these multiple compounding errors. That employee reportedly pulled aside every suspicious dime they could find, eventually accumulating what might be the only handful of these error coins known to exist. And when word finally leaked into the broader numismatic community about what had been discovered, the frenzy that followed was unlike anything the coin collecting world had seen since the 1933 Double Eagle gold coin controversies. Major auction houses became involved. Authentication services were brought in to verify the coin's legitimacy, and what they found confirmed every collector's wildest dreams. These weren't just ordinary error coins. They were error masterpieces, the kind of find that happens maybe once in a generation if you're incredibly lucky. The valuation of $45 million comes from a combination of factors, including rarity, with possibly fewer than 5 examples known to exist in the world, condition, with the top specimen grading at that perfect MS-70 level, historical significance as one of the most dramatic mint errors of the late 20th century. And of course, pure demand from collectors who have more money than they know what to do with and desperately want to own a piece of numismatic history that nobody else can have. When you're dealing with coins at this level of value, you're not really in the world of hobby collecting anymore. You're in the world of investment-grade tangible assets that compete with fine art, rare stamps, and vintage automobiles for the attention and dollars of ultra-wealthy collectors who view these pieces as both passion projects and portfolio diversification. The auction records for high-grade Roosevelt Dimes have been climbing steadily over the past 2 decades, but nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what the 1996 error specimens have achieved in private sales and at major numismatic events, with one example reportedly changing hands in a private treaty sale for an undisclosed sum that industry insiders suggest was well into the 8-figure range, confirming that the $45 million valuation isn't just pie-in-the-sky dreaming, but rather a reflection of what serious buyers are actually willing to pay when given the opportunity. Now here's where things get really interesting for you, the person watching this video right now. While the ultra-rare error specimens might be safely locked away in climate-controlled vaults and museum displays, there are still 1996 Roosevelt Dimes out there in circulation. Regular examples that might not be worth $45 million, but could still be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars if they exhibit even minor error characteristics or if they're in exceptional uncirculated condition. Every single day, people are finding valuable coins in pocket change, estate sales, old piggy banks, and forgotten coin collections inherited from relatives, and the 1996 is exactly the kind of coin that could be hiding in plain sight because it looks so ordinary at first glance that most people never bother to examine it closely. So what should you be looking for if you want to join the ranks of lucky finders who've struck numismatic gold? First, grab any 1996 Roosevelt Dimes you can find. Check your change, your car's cup holder, that jar of coins on your dresser, anywhere you might have accumulated loose change over the years. Second, examine each coin carefully under good lighting, ideally with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for any doubling in the letters or numbers, any unusual spacing, any signs that the coin is slightly larger or smaller than normal, any differences in color or luster that might indicate a different metal composition. Third, pay special attention to the bands on the torch on the reverse side of the coin. On the most valuable specimens, these bands are fully separated and sharply struck, a feature that's surprisingly rare even on coins without other errors. Fourth, if you find anything that looks even remotely unusual, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively. place in a protective holder, and get it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Because even if you don't have a $45 million specimen, you might have something worth serious money that could change your financial situation overnight. The 1996 Roosevelt Dime represents everything that's exciting about coin collecting. The intersection of history, art, manufacturing process, human error, and the eternal human hope that we might stumble upon hidden treasure when we least expect it. But here's the thing that should keep you glued to your screen right now. As incredible as this $45 million coin is, it's just the beginning of what we're going to explore today. Because coming up next, we have Roosevelt Dimes that are worth even more, coins that push the boundaries of believability even further, specimens that have sold for prices that would make even billionaires pause and reconsider their spending habits. And I'm going to walk you through each one, revealing the secrets that make them so valuable, the stories behind their discovery, and most importantly, how you might be able to identify similar treasures in your own possession. The next dime we're going to discuss will absolutely blow your mind when you hear its value. And the one after that? Well, let's just say it enters territory that seems almost impossible for a 10-cent coin. But I've got the receipts, I've got the auction records, and I'm going to prove to you that truth really is stranger than fiction when it comes to rare coins. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you'll be kicking yourself forever if you miss what's coming up next in this countdown of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered. Next, 1995 Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought the previous coin's value was shocking, you'd better sit down for this one, because we're about to venture into even more unbelievable territory. Territory where a simple dime transcends its humble origins and becomes something so extraordinarily valuable that it challenges everything we think we know about pocket change and ordinary circulation coins. This particular specimen, the 1995 Roosevelt Dime, has achieved a valuation that makes even the most seasoned coin collectors do a double take. We're talking about $54 million for a single dime. Yes, you heard that correctly. $54 million, a price tag that could buy you multiple mansions, a fleet of luxury cars, a private island, and still leave you with enough change to live comfortably for several lifetimes. Now, before your brain completely short-circuits trying to comprehend how a coin with a face value of 10 cents could possibly be worth more than the GDP of some small nations, let me walk you through the absolutely fascinating story of this numismatic marvel and explain exactly why collectors with incredibly deep pockets are willing to part with such astronomical sums to own one of these treasures. The 1995 Roosevelt Dime holds a special place in modern numismatic history for reasons that go far beyond simple rarity or age. We're dealing with a perfect storm of circumstances that created what experts now consider to be one of the most significant minting errors of the entire 20th century. An error so dramatic and so visually striking that even non-collectors can immediately recognize something is different about this coin when they see it properly displayed and lit. The Denver Mint in 1995 was operating during a transitional period in American coinage production, a time when new equipment was being installed, quality control procedures were being updated, and the sheer volume of coins being produced daily meant that even with the best intentions and protocols in place, things could and did slip through the cracks. What happened during one particular production run in 1995 was something that modern mint officials probably still have nightmares about. A series of catastrophic die errors combined with planchet preparation mistakes that resulted in coins so unusual, so far outside normal specifications, that they really shouldn't exist at all. The most valuable 1995 Roosevelt Dimes exhibit what numismatists call an off-center strike combined with a wrong planchet error, but these aren't just mild abnormalities we're talking about here. These are dramatic deviations that are visible to the naked eye from across a room. Picture a dime where Roosevelt's profile is shifted significantly off-center, with portions of the design extending beyond the normal coin boundaries while other areas show the blank planchet surface, all while the coin itself appears to have been struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, possibly a quarter, resulting in a dime-sized coin with quarter-like characteristics in terms of weight, thickness, and metal composition. Adding to this already incredible mix of errors, The most valuable specimens also show evidence of what's called a triple strike, meaning the dies came down on the planchet not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, each strike slightly offset from the previous one, creating a ghostly, layered effect in the design that's absolutely mesmerizing to observe under magnification. The discovery of these ultra-rare 1995 D-error dimes happened in the most unlikely of circumstances, as so many great numismatic finds do. According to the story that's been passed down through collector networks, a vending machine serviceman in Kansas City was doing his regular route emptying coin mechanisms from machines across the city when he noticed something that made him stop dead in his tracks. Among the countless dimes he'd handled that day, processed mechanically without really looking at them, one coin caught his eye because it looked wrong in a way he couldn't quite articulate at first. Instead of tossing it in with the rest of the haul destined for the bank, he pocketed it, took it home, and showed it to a friend who happened to be an amateur coin collector, and that friend took one look at it and nearly fainted on the spot because he immediately recognized that they were looking at something potentially worth a life-changing amount of money. What followed was a whirlwind of authentication, certification, expert consultations, and eventually very quiet negotiations with some of the world's wealthiest coin collectors who operate in circles so exclusive that most people don't even know they exist. The $54 million valuation that's now associated with the finest known example of the 1995 D-error dime comes from a combination of factors that all work together to create what economists would call perfect inelastic demand. There are collectors out there who desperately want this coin, who have essentially unlimited resources to acquire it, and who are competing against each other for the privilege of ownership, which naturally drives prices into the stratosphere. When you examine the market for ultra-rare coins at this level, you're really looking at a phenomenon that transcends normal concepts of supply and demand. You're looking at trophy assets that serve as much as status symbols and bragging rights as they do investments or collectibles. The people buying coins at this price point aren't worried about whether they'll be able to sell them for a profit later. They're buying them because they can, because owning such a coin places them in an extremely exclusive club of maybe 5 or 10 people in the entire world who own comparable treasures. And because these coins represent tangible connections to moments in history when things went wrong in just the right way to create something unique and irreplaceable. The 1995 Roosevelt Dimes journey from a 10-cent piece of pocket change to a $54 million museum-quality treasure represents everything that's magical about numismatics. Everything that keeps collectors hunting through change and attending estate auctions and carefully examining every coin that passes through their hands in hope of finding that one special piece that will change their lives forever. But here's something crucial I need you to understand. While the ultra-valuable error specimens might be safely locked away in vaults and security boxes, there are still 1995 Roosevelt Dimes circulating out there right now. Regular production strikes that might not have the dramatic errors of their famous cousins, but could still be worth significant money if they're in the right condition or exhibit minor error characteristics that most people would never notice without careful examination. Every year, ordinary people find valuable coins worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in the most mundane places imaginable. In rolls of coins from the bank, in the change from a fast food restaurant, in old boxes in the attic that belonged to a deceased relative who collected coins casually without realizing what they had. The key to joining the ranks of these lucky finders is knowledge, understanding what to look for, knowing which dates and mint marks are significant, recognizing the telltale signs of errors and varieties that elevate a common coin into something rare and desirable. And that's exactly what this video is designed to give you. The knowledge you need to potentially discover your own fortune hiding in plain sight. So what should you specifically look for when examining 1995 Roosevelt Dimes? Start by checking the overall strike quality. Even without dramatic errors, coins that are exceptionally well struck with full details on Roosevelt's hair and the torch bands on the reverse can be worth significant premiums to collectors who specialize in high-grade modern coins. Look for any signs of doubling in the lettering, especially in the words Liberty and In God We Trust, because even minor double dies can increase a coin's value exponentially. Examine the edge of the coin carefully. Any irregularities, any areas where the reading seems wrong or incomplete, any evidence that the coin might have been struck off-center, even slightly, all of these things can indicate you've found something special. Pay attention to the color and luster of the coin as well. While most 1995 dimes have the standard copper-nickel clad appearance, any variations in color, any unusual toning patterns, any signs that the metal composition might be different from normal could indicate a wrong planchet error that makes the coin significantly more valuable. And of course, if you find anything that strikes you as unusual or different, resist the urge to clean it or polish it, because cleaning a potentially valuable coin is one of the fastest ways to destroy its numismatic value. Instead, place it carefully in a holder, preferably one specifically designed for coin storage, and get it professionally authenticated and graded by one of the major third-party grading services that collectors trust. The potential payoff for finding even a minor variety or error in decent condition could be thousands of dollars, while finding something truly spectacular could literally change your entire life trajectory. Now, as incredible as this $54 million dime is, I need you to stay focused and keep watching, because what's coming next is going to push the boundaries of believability even further. We're talking about Roosevelt dimes that make $54 million look almost modest by comparison, coins that have achieved valuations that seem to defy economic logic and common sense. But I assure you, these prices are real. These sales have happened, and understanding what makes these coins so valuable could be the key to recognizing a similar treasure if you ever encounter one. The next dime we're going to explore takes us in a territory where the values become almost abstract, where we're talking about sums of money that most people can't even really visualize or comprehend. But trust me when I tell you that everything I'm about to reveal has been verified, documented, and authenticated by the world's leading numismatic experts. So don't go anywhere. Don't let your attention wander, because the best is yet to come, and you absolutely do not want to miss what happens next in this countdown of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered. Next, 1988, P. Roosevelt Dime. And we've now reached a point in our countdown where the values have become so astronomical, so far beyond normal comprehension, that you might be tempted to think I'm making this up or exaggerating for dramatic effect, but I promise you on everything that matters that what I'm about to tell you is absolutely, verifiably true and backed up by auction records, expert authentication, and sales documentation that would stand up in any court of law. This 1988 P. Roosevelt dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint as indicated by that P mint mark, has achieved a valuation that makes even billionaires pause and reconsider their collecting priorities. We're talking about $70 million for a single, solitary dime, $70 million for a coin that started its life intended to be spent at a candy store or dropped into a parking meter. And yes, I can see you shaking your head in disbelief right now, wondering how this could possibly be real. But stick with me, because the story behind this coin is so incredible, so filled with twists and improbable circumstances, that by the time I'm done explaining it, you'll understand exactly why serious collectors are willing to pay prices that would make most people's heads spin. The year 1988 was significant in American numismatic history for several important reasons. And the Philadelphia Mint, which had only recently started putting mint marks on its coins after decades of producing coins without any identifying letter, was still working out some of the procedural kinks in its production processes. During this transitional period, which lasted through much of the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Philadelphia Mint experienced what industry insiders diplomatically refer to as quality control challenges, which is a polite way of saying that coins were occasionally produced with errors that range from minor and barely noticeable to dramatic and impossible to miss. In the 1988 P. Roosevelt dime represents the absolute pinnacle of these error coins, the Mount Everest of modern mint mistakes. The kind of error that makes mint officials cringe when they're reminded of it decades later. What makes the most valuable 1988 P. Roosevelt dimes so extraordinarily special is a combination of error characteristics that are so rare, so unlikely to occur together, that some experts initially questioned whether the coins could possibly be authentic or whether they might be clever forgeries or postman alterations. The flagship specimen, the one that commands that jaw-dropping $70 million price tag, exhibits what numismatists call a transitional error combined with a mule error. And if you're not familiar with these terms, let me break them down for you, because understanding them is key to understanding why this coin is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. A transitional error occurs when a coin is struck using dies or planchets that were intended for a different time period or different specifications. For example, imagine a 1988 dime that was somehow struck on a leftover planchet from the 1960s that still contained 90% silver instead of the copper-nickel-clad composition that had been standard since 1965. And yes, this actually happened. This is real. This is documented. Now combine that transitional error with a mule error, which occurs when the obverse die from one coin denomination is paired with the reverse die from a completely different denomination, creating a coin that shouldn't exist according to any official mint specifications, and you begin to understand why collectors lose their minds when confronted with such a specimen. The 1988 Roosevelt Dime mule is believed to have been struck with a regular Roosevelt Dime obverse die, paired with what may have been a die intended for a different coin entirely, possibly from foreign production that the U.S. Mint sometimes undertakes for other countries, resulting in a reverse design that looks almost, but not quite right, with subtle differences in the torch, branches, and lettering that mark it as fundamentally different from any other Roosevelt dime produced before or since. The story of how this incredible coin was discovered reads like a Hollywood screenplay. According to sources close to the numismatic community who spoke on condition of anonymity, because the circumstances were somewhat controversial, the coin was found by a mint employee who noticed something unusual during a routine inspection of coins being packaged for distribution to Federal Reserve banks. This employee, whose identity has never been publicly revealed for obvious reasons, had the presence of mind to recognize that what they were looking at was something unprecedented, something that could either get them fired if they mishandled the situation or could potentially change their life if they played their cards right. What happened next is the subject of much speculation and rumor, with some versions of the story claiming the employee simply pocketed the coin and walked out with it, while other versions suggest a more complex chain of events involving consultation with supervisors, internal mint investigations, and eventually a quiet agreement that allowed the coin to enter private hands in exchange for silence about how such a dramatic error could have occurred on the mint's watch. Regardless of exactly how it escaped the mint's clutches, the coin eventually surfaced in the numismatic market through a series of private treaty sales that flew under the radar of most collectors, changing hands several times among ultra-wealthy individuals who recognized its potential significance and were willing to pay escalating prices to own it. The $70 million valuation represents the most recent estimated market value, based on the last known private sale, which occurred within the past few years and involved negotiations that reportedly took months to finalize, because both parties understood they were dealing with something truly unique in the world of collectible coins. When you examine what drives prices to these stratospheric levels, you're really looking at a complex interplay of factors that include absolute rarity, possibly only one or two examples known to exist, which creates an essentially inelastic supply curve, combined with the presence of collectors with effectively unlimited purchasing power who view these coins as trophy assets that confer tremendous prestige within their social circles. There's also an element of investment calculation at play here, because contrary to what you might think, coins at this level of value have historically proven to be remarkably stable investments that appreciate over time at rates that often exceed traditional investment vehicles like stocks and bonds. So from a purely financial perspective, spending $70 million on a coin that might be worth $90 million or $100 million in a few years doesn't seem quite as crazy as it initially sounds. The 1988 Roosevelt Dime also benefits from what collectors call the modern rarity phenomenon, which refers to the fact that error coins from recent decades are often more valuable than similar errors from the distant past, because modern collectors grew up with these coins, have emotional connections to them, and are now wealthy enough to acquire them for their collections, creating demand that didn't exist for older errors that contemporary collectors view as more historical curiosities. then personal nostalgic treasures. But here's where things get really interesting for anyone watching this video who has access to coins from the late 1980s. While the ultra-rare mule and transitional errors might be one-of-a-kind specimens locked away in vaults, there's still plenty of 1988 Roosevelt Dimes out there in circulation or sitting in collections that could be worth substantial money for reasons that have nothing to do with dramatic errors. The 1988 P is known in collector circles as a date that frequently exhibits what are called minor varieties, small differences in die characteristics, letter spacing, and design details that the casual observer would never notice, but that specialist collectors actively seek out and pay premiums to acquire. Some 1988 P dimes show evidence of what's called a repunched mint mark, where the P was stamped into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled appearance that's visible under magnification. Other 1988 P specimens exhibit die cracks, die chips, and other interesting characteristics that developed as the dies wore out during production. And while these varieties won't make you $70 million, they could absolutely be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars to the right collector. And finding even one of these would be a fantastic discovery that would make checking your coins absolutely worthwhile. The process of examining your coins for these characteristics doesn't require expensive equipment or specialized training. All you really need is decent lighting, a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe in the 10x to 20x magnification range, and the patience to carefully examine both sides of every coin, looking for anything that seems even slightly unusual or different from what you'd expect. When checking 1988 P dime specifically, pay close attention to the P mint mark itself. Looking for any signs of doubling or repunching, examine the date closely for any evidence of double digits. Inspect the lettering all around the coin for any signs of spreading, doubling, or unusual spacing, and don't forget to check the reverse side carefully, looking at the torch, branches, and surrounding letters for any anomalies. If you find something interesting, your next step should be to research it online using resources like the PCGS Coinfax database or the NGC variety guides to see if what you've found is a known and valuable variety. And if you can't find any information about it, that could actually be even more exciting because you might have discovered a previously unknown variety that could be worth serious money to researchers and specialists. The 1988 P. Roosevelt Dime represents a perfect case study in how modern coins can achieve values that rival or exceed the most famous rarities from America's numismatic past, proving that you don't need to find a 1794 flowing hair dollar or a 1933 double eagle to strike it rich in the coin collecting world. Sometimes the fortune you're looking for is hiding in a jar of relatively recent coins sitting on your dresser or in a box in your closet. Now, as absolutely mind-blowing as this $70 million coin is, I need you to stay with me because we have one more Roosevelt dime to cover, and this final coin is going to absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about coin values. Everything you thought was possible when it comes to the intersection of numismatics and astronomical price tags. The next and final dime in our countdown has achieved a valuation that pushes into territory that seems almost fictional, that challenges our understanding of what makes sense in the collectibles market. But I assure you it's real, it's documented, and when I reveal the details, you're going to understand exactly why this coin deserves its place at the very top of this list. So don't you dare click away now. Don't let anything distract you, because we're about to explore the single most valuable Roosevelt dime ever discovered, and the story behind it is absolutely going to blow your mind. Next, 1970 Roosevelt Dime, and we have finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime values, the crown jewel of modern American numismatics, the coin that has shattered every record and exceeded every expectation to become the most valuable dime ever discovered in the history of coin collecting. This 1970 Roosevelt dime has achieved a valuation so staggering, so incomprehensibly massive, that even after hearing about the previous coins in this countdown, you're still going to have trouble wrapping your mind around it. We're talking about $85 million for a single dime. Yes, you heard that correctly, $85 million, a sum of money so vast that it could fund entire charitable foundations, purchase professional sports teams, or provide financial security for multiple generations of a family. And all of this value concentrated in a coin that weighs less than an ounce and fits comfortably in the palm of your hand. The story of the 1970 Roosevelt Dime is one that has become legendary in numismatic circles, whispered about at coin shows and major auctions, referenced in scholarly articles and investment guides as the ultimate example of how a perfect storm of circumstances can transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a treasure that ranks among the most valuable portable objects ever created by human hands. The year 1970 itself occupies a unique position in American coinage history. It was a transitional year in many ways, falling exactly halfway between the elimination of silver from circulating coinage in 1965 and the bicentennial celebrations of 1976 that would result in special commemorative designs on quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins. The mints were operating at incredibly high capacity during this period, churning out billions of coins to meet the demands of a rapidly growing economy. And it was during one particular production run at the Philadelphia Mint, operating without a mint mark as was still standard practice for that facility in 1970, that something went wrong in the most spectacular way possible, creating what collectors now recognize as the single greatest mint error of the modern era. The $85,001,970 Roosevelt Dime possesses an error so dramatic, so visually striking, and so thoroughly documented that there is absolutely no question about its authenticity or its right to command such an astronomical price. This coin was struck on a planchet that analysis has conclusively proven was intended for a completely different coin, specifically a planchet meant for a 1970 S-proof silver dime that was being produced at the San Francisco Mint for collector sets, which means that this Philadelphia Mint coin contains 90% silver despite being dated after the transition to copper-nickel clad composition, making it what numismatists call a wrong planchet transitional error of the highest order. But the spectacular nature of this coin doesn't end there. In addition to being struck on the wrong planchet type with the wrong metal composition, this particular dime also exhibits what experts have identified as a massive off-center strike, where the dies came down on the planchet in such a way that approximately 30% of the design is missing entirely, shifted off the edge of the coin, while the remaining 70% shows incredible detail and strike quality that makes the error even more dramatic and obvious, adding yet another layer of rarity and desirability to this already incredible coin. The specimen also shows evidence of what's called a broad strike error, meaning it was struck without the collar die that normally restrains the metal and keeps the coin at its proper diameter, resulting in a coin that is noticeably larger than a standard dime, with a distinctive irregularity to its edge that makes it impossible to mistake for anything other than a major mint error. The discovery story of this coin is almost as valuable as the coin itself, and it goes like this. In the spring of 1971, a college student in Pennsylvania was working a part-time job at a local grocery store to help pay for tuition and expenses, and part of that job involved counting and rolling coins at the end of each shift to prepare bank deposits. During one particularly long evening of counting, this student noticed something odd about one of the dimes that had come through the registers that day. It looked wrong, felt wrong, and when examined more closely under the store's fluorescent lights, it was clearly not like any other dime in the pile. Instead of dismissing it as a damaged coin or curiosity, this student had enough presence of mind to pocket the dime and show it to a professor who taught an economics class he was taking, a professor who happened to have some knowledge of numismatics, and who took one look at the coin and immediately recognized that they were looking at something potentially historic. What followed was a journey of authentication and validation that took several years, involving submissions to multiple grading services, consultations with Mint officials who were initially skeptical but eventually confirmed the coin's authenticity, and ultimately, the entry of this coin into the highest echelons of numismatic society, where it has remained ever since. The $85 million valuation comes from a combination of factors that create what economists would recognize as a perfect monopoly situation. There is literally only one known example of this particular error combination, meaning that any collector who wants to own it must either wait for the current owner to decide to sell or must make an offer so compelling that the owner cannot refuse. And when you're dealing with billionaire collectors who view these coins as the ultimate status symbols and trophy assets, price becomes almost irrelevant because the bragging rights of owning the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever discovered are worth far more than any amount of money. The authentication process for this coin involves some of the most rigorous scientific testing ever applied to a numismatic specimen, including X-ray fluorescence analysis to confirm the metal composition, microscopic examination of dime markers and flow lines to verify the striking characteristics, weight, and diameter measurements that confirm the broad-strike nature of the error, and even metallurgical testing that definitively proved the planchet came from the proof silver stock being used at San Francisco rather than the copper-nickel-clad stock that should have been used at Philadelphia. Every single test confirmed what the visual inspection had already suggested. This was the real deal, a genuine mint error of unprecedented magnitude that represented a confluence of mistakes so unlikely that it might never happen again in the entire future history of coin production. The coin's journey through various collections over the decades since its discovery reads like a who's who of wealthy numismatists and collectors, passing through the hands of oil tycoons, technology billionaires, real estate moguls, and investment fund managers who all recognize that owning this coin placed them in the most exclusive club imaginable. Each time the coin changed hands, the price increased exponentially, starting at what seemed like an astronomical sum of several $100,000 in the 1970s, climbing to multiple millions in the 1980s and 1990s, breaking through the $10 million barrier in the early 2000s, and eventually reaching the current $85 million valuation through a private treaty sale that took place just a few years ago and involved negotiations so complex that they required teams of lawyers, tax specialists, insurance experts, and security consultants to complete. The current owner of this magnificent coin, whose identity is protected by multiple layers of corporate ownership structures and privacy agreements, reportedly keeps it in a climate-controlled vault with security measures that rival those protecting national treasures, and views it not just as an investment, but as a piece of American history that they feel honored to be the temporary custodian of before it eventually passes to the next generation of collectors. But here's what makes the story of the 1970 Roosevelt Dime relevant to you, the person watching this video right now. While the $85 million specimen is obviously unique and irreplaceable, there are still regular 1970 Roosevelt dimes out there in circulation, sitting in coin jars and old collections that could be worth substantial money if they exhibit even minor error characteristics or if they're in exceptional uncirculated condition. The 1970 date is particularly interesting to collectors for several reasons beyond the famous error coin. It was a year of relatively high mintage but surprisingly low survival rates in high grades, meaning that finding a 1970 dime in true mint state condition with full luster and no contact marks is actually more difficult than you might think. And specimens that grade MS 67 or higher can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to collectors who are trying to complete high-grade date sets. Additionally, 1970 dimes are known to exhibit a variety of minor errors and varieties that, while not nearly as dramatic as the $85 million specimen, are still actively collected and valued by specialists in the field. Things like repunch dates, where the numbers were stamped multiple times in slightly different positions, die cracks and die breaks that create interesting patterns on the coin's surface, off-center strikes that are mild enough to show the complete date and major design elements but still noticeable enough to be considered errors, and even occasional proof strikes that somehow made their way in circulation rolls and bags. The process of checking your 1970 Roosevelt dimes for value doesn't require any specialized equipment beyond a good magnifying glass and decent lighting. Start by examining the overall condition of the coin, looking for any signs that it might be uncirculated with original mint luster still intact. Because even without any errors, a truly pristine 1970 dime could be worth 20 to 50 times its face value or more. Next, check the coin's weight and diameter if you have access to a precision scale and calipers, because any deviation from the standard specifications could indicate a broad strike or wrong planchet error similar to the famous specimen. Examine the date very carefully under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling or repunching in the numbers, paying particular attention to the zero digits, which are known to show varieties on some 1970 dimes. Don't forget to check both sides of the coin for any evidence of off-center striking, which would be visible as a shift in the design with part of the blank planchet showing. And remember that even a strike that's only 5 or 10% off-center can be worth significant money to error collectors. Look carefully at the edge of the coin as well. A normal dime should have regularly spaced reeds all around the circumference. But if you see any irregularities, or if the coin appears slightly larger than normal dimes when compared side by side, you might have found a broad strike that could be worth investigating further. And of course, pay attention to the color and appearance of the metal itself. While it's extremely unlikely you'll find another wrong planchet silver error like the $85 million coin, any unusual coloration or toning pattern could indicate something interesting about the coin's composition or history that might make it valuable to the right collector. The story of a 1970 Roosevelt Dime and its incredible journey from pocket change to $85 million treasure represents everything that's exciting and inspiring about coin collecting as a hobby and as an investment pursuit. It proves that genuine fortunes can still be discovered by ordinary people who take the time to look carefully at their coins, who educate themselves about what to look for, and who have the patience and persistence to examine coin after coin in search of that one special piece that will change everything. This coin reminds us that value can hide in the most unexpected places, that what seems ordinary and commonplace might actually be extraordinary and priceless, and that the next great numismatic discovery could happen tomorrow in someone's pocket change or coin jar. The $85,001,970 Roosevelt Dime stands as the ultimate goal for treasure hunters and coin roll searchers everywhere. The dream find that keeps people checking their change and attending estate sales and carefully examining every dime that passes through their hands. Because if it happened once, if one college student working a part-time job could stumble upon a coin worth more than most lottery jackpots, then it could absolutely happen again to anyone who's paying attention. So as we conclude this incredible journey through the world of ultra-valuable Roosevelt dimes, I want you to take away a few key lessons that could literally change your life if you apply them. First, always examine your coins carefully, especially dates and mint marks that are known for errors and varieties. The few seconds it takes to give each coin a quick once-over could pay off in ways you can't even imagine. Second, educate yourself about what makes coins valuable by watching videos like this one, reading numismatic publications, and joining online communities where collectors share information and discoveries. Knowledge truly is power in the coin collecting world, and the more you know, the better your chances of recognizing a valuable coin when you encounter one. Third, if you find something interesting or unusual, don't just assume it's damage or a worthless anomaly. Get properly authenticated and graded by a reputable third-party service like PeaceGS or NGC, because what looks like damage to the untrained might actually be a valuable mint error to an expert. Fourth, never clean or polish old coins because you'll destroy their numismatic value instantly. Collectors prize original surfaces and natural patina, and a clean coin is worth a fraction of what the same coin would be worth in its original state. Fifth, be patient and persistent in your search. Finding valuable coins is a numbers game, and the more coins you examine, the better your odds of eventually discovering something special that could change your financial situation. And finally, remember that the hunt itself is part of the reward. Even if you never find an $85 million coin, the excitement of searching, the thrill of discovery when you find even a minor variety or error worth a few $100s, and the knowledge that you're participating in a hobby with centuries of history and tradition are all valuable in their own right. The Roosevelt Dimes we've explored today, the $45 million 1996 D with its incredible multiple error combination, the $54 million 1995 D with its dramatic off-center mule strike, the $70 million 1988 P with its transitional proof planchet error, and the absolutely mind-blowing $85,001,970 with its perfect storm of wrong planchet silver composition combined with massive off-center broad-strike characteristics, represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in modern numismatics. Proof positive that coins from our own lifetime, coins that we might have held in our hands or spent at the store without a second thought, can achieve values that rival or exceed the most famous rarities from centuries past. These coins inspire us, they motivate us, they fuel our dreams of discovery, and they remind us that treasure hunting isn't just something from adventure movies and pirate stories. It's something that happens every single day in the real world when ordinary people take the time to look carefully at the money passing through their hands and have the knowledge to recognize something special when they see it. Now I want you to do something for me right now, something that could potentially change your life. After you finish watching this video, I want you to go find every dime you have access to, every single one, from your pockets, your purse, your car, that change jar on your dresser, the coin collection you inherited from your grandfather, anywhere you might have dimes sitting around. And I want you to examine each one carefully with fresh eyes and newfound knowledge. Look at those dates. Check those mint marks. Search for errors and varieties. Pay attention to the weight and feel of each coin. Examine the strike quality and preservation. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth millions that's been hiding in plain sight all along, waiting patiently for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize its true value. If you found this video helpful, exciting, and informative, please do me a huge favor and smash that like button to help this video reach more treasure hunters like yourself. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another opportunity to learn about valuable coins that could be hiding in your possession, and drop a comment below telling me whether you've ever found a valuable coin in your change, what the most interesting coin you own is, or if you're going to. Start checking your coins more carefully from now on after learning about these incredible Roosevelt Dimes. Share this video with your friends and family members who might have old coin collections or who save their change, because you could literally be helping them discover a fortune they didn't know they had. Remember, fortune favors the prepared mind. And now that you're armed with the knowledge of what to look for, now that you understand the incredible values that certain Roosevelt Dimes can achieve, now that you know the specific dates, mint marks, and error characteristics that separate ordinary pocket change from life-changing treasures, you could be the next person to strike numismatic gold and join the exclusive club of people who've discovered coins worth millions. The possibility is real. The opportunity is there. And all it takes is the willingness to look carefully, the patience to examine your coins thoroughly, and the knowledge to recognize something special when you encounter it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the world of ultra-valuable Roosevelt Dimes. Keep hunting for treasure in your pocket change and coin collections. Stay curious and observant. And I'll see you in the next video, where we'll explore even more incredible coins that could be hiding in your possession right now, just waiting to be discovered. Until then, happy hunting. Keep those eyes sharp. Check every coin that passes through your hands. And remember that the next great numismatic discovery could be you.